one fund. On point for today, the experts to talk about it. This is the ETF of the week. Welcome to the ETF of the week, where we get the latest take of the experts at VettaFi. It's a site that has built and developed fabulous tools so that you can be a savvy, sound investor in exchange-traded funds. And normally, well, for over a decade, the ETF of the week has pretty much always featured Tom Lydon, vice chairman at VettaFi. But VettaFi has built, grown, done a bunch of other things. And, well, Tom is going to be stepping back just a little bit. He's still going to be here a lot. But joining me today, Todd Rosenbluth. He is the head of research at VettaFi. Again, it's VettaFi.com if you want more information. Todd Rosenbluth, great to chat with you.
It's great to be with you, Chuck. Thanks a lot for having me on. Your
ETF of the week is
the Bitwise Bitcoin ETF.
The Bitwise Bitcoin ETF, ticker symbol BITB. Now, this is the ETF of the week because it's not even, as of the day that this airs, it's a week old, because that's the day that all of the Bitcoin ETFs that are spot Bitcoin ETFs came out. But there were like a dozen of them. So why this Bitcoin ETF for ETF of the week?
Yeah, so BITB came to market, as you mentioned, Thursday in January. What excites us about this is Bitcoin overall is part of Bitwise's heritage. So this ETF gathered over $200 million in its first day of trading. It continued to see trading volume, and it's a low-cost, effective way of getting exposure to Bitcoin. It actually has a fee of 0.00 for the initial months and the initial asset gathering, and is going to be quite cheap at just 20 basis points once it crosses that threshold. So we thought this ETF was a great one to highlight in this milestone.
How much difference do you see between the Bitcoin ETFs? Because one of the things that's really interesting to me, everybody is focused on what are the expense ratios going to be. And the funds, because there are so many of them, are kind of having a race to get as low as they can. But because of the rules, as I understand them, with the spot Bitcoin ETFs, you're going to have higher trading costs because there's not a national bid-ask spread, some things along those lines. And trading costs are in addition to the expense ratio. They're not part of the expense ratio. So do you believe that's going to show up, and is that going to make a difference as to which ETF that does Bitcoin you're going to want to own?
We do. We do think liquidity is going to matter for investors, and that trading cost, that bid-ask spread that you referenced, is going to be important. We're days into the trading, so we've seen some pretty tight spreads overall for the industry, Bitwise ETFs in particular. But what actually excites us most is that we at VettaFi hosted a cryptocurrency symposium the day after these products first launched. And we asked investors and advisors what mattered most to them. And it was actually the expertise of the firm that mattered more than the expense ratio. It mattered more than liquidity. It mattered more than the breadth of services. It was the expertise of the firm. And that's why Bitwise is the firm we wanted to highlight today. They've got long history of focusing on Bitcoin investing, able to educate investors how it can fit into a portfolio, talk about some of those key developments coming up in 2024. You often want to go to a partner where this is the area of expertise, and we think that Bitwise is one of those firms.
Will there be a difference to you in terms of which Bitcoin ETF you want if you're a short-term trader versus a long-term, hodler, a hold on for dear lifer?
So I think most people are probably going to have a short to intermediate term time horizon as these products get up to speed. But we do think a long time horizon makes sense. And so if that's the case, the expense ratio is going to matter. We're hearing investors and advisors that are looking to put a low single digit percentage of their portfolio into Bitcoin and have it stay there and have it grow overall. And so if that's the case, you want to make sure that total cost of ownership, the expense ratio, as well as that trading volume is important to you.
I'm always asking Tom Lydon about trend following because that's his origin story. He, of course, was a trend follower early on. Obviously, these funds are brand new, so we don't have 200-day moving averages and won't for quite some time. But do you believe that these will be heavily trend followed and heavily traded, and that liquidity is going to matter in terms of, which one's going to be your tool to be your proxy for Bitcoin?
Well, I think that the trend is going to be the same for all of these ETFs because of the underlying spot Bitcoin, how it is going to trade. And of course, 2023 was an excellent year for Bitcoin. It was one of the best performing assets overall, if there was an ETF, it would have been among the better performing ETFs that's there. And so we know that we've seen a real rise up in price leading in to the potential and now the ultimate launching of these 10 Bitcoin ETFs and the conversion of 2 other ones. Time will tell whether or not 2024 is a great year again for Bitcoin investing. But for those that want to have an allocation, we think this is a good way of getting exposure to it. You, of course, get the benefits of an ETF. It trades on an exchange. During market hours, you get to see the transparency of what that trade is going to cost you. It just makes it much easier for people who've owned ETFs over the years to allocate to Bitcoin using an ETF like BITB.
Does it make the Bitcoin futures ETFs, which was the way that people had to trade Bitcoin, does it make them obsolete? I mean, if you're a Bitcoin owner, or you want to be a Bitcoin owner, is there any reason now that spot Bitcoin ETFs are there that you would go instead with the futures-based ETFs?
So the short answer is maybe. For some investors that want to have a product that has a long enough track record that has trading history, it's approved perhaps on certain platforms and available because it launched in 2021, then BITO or some of the other products that are futures-based can make sense. But we do think that spot-based Bitcoin ETFs are going to take market share over the next year or two from a futures-based product. It's a cleaner way of getting exposure for many people to track the price of Bitcoin, to own an ETF that tracks the price of Bitcoin.
Obviously, we're not done seeing creation, but is this the bulk of what we're going to see? I mean, I would imagine anybody else who comes out now is so late to the party that there's not going to be much innovation. There's not going to be much anything that you can do. So is this it? We've seen, like, these are the Bitcoin ETFs and the next one will be Ethereum or what have you. It won't be more expansion of Bitcoin products.
Oh no, Chuck. The ETF industry is known for innovation. So as we're recording this the next day, we will expect that there'll be an ETF that is trading, that is a covered call, that's using a version of Bitcoin. So it's using options to generate income using Bitcoin as the underlying asset. We expect we're going to see a couple more of those products. We're likely to see products that include Bitcoin exposure and broader equities. Bitcoin fits into a portfolio in many different ways. We think we're going to see ETFs that make it easier for investors to be able to do that. This is the beginning of the evolution of Bitcoin exposure using ETFs. This isn't the end.
Well, and we will be watching it with you. We're glad that we get you on ETF of the week at times. And of course, it's always great to chat with you because, like me, you're a University of Michigan grad. Todd, great to talk with you. Go Blue. Enjoy the year. We'll talk again soon.
Go Blue, national champions, Michigan Wolverines.
The ETF of the week is a joint production of VettaFi and Moneylife with Chuck Jaffe. Yep, that's me, and you can learn all about my hour-long weekday podcast by going to MoneyLifeShow.com or by searching for it wherever you find great podcasts. If you want to get more information on investing in exchange-traded funds, there's no better place than VettaFi.com. They have a full suite of tools for you there. You can learn about it at VettaFi.com and on Twitter or X at Vetta_Fi. And Todd Rosenbluth, head of research at VettaFi, my guest. Well, he's on Twitter too. He is at Todd Rosenbluth. ETF of the Week is here for you every Thursday. Make sure you don't miss one by subscribing on your favorite podcast app. Until next week, happy investing, everybody.